Definition of fable in literature is described as a didactic lessons given through some of the animal story. The explanation of this, the one who describes or narrates here is an animal only. Features of fables to provide a moral story. It means it provides lesson in each of the detailed story. Number 2, fable often use animal as the main character. This means that they are using something, a puppet, so for it serve as a character. Number 3, fables personify the animal character. All the story of the character features are animals. The example of the fable story is about the fox and the crow. There are some examples of moral lessons in the fables. Number 1, for example, number 1 is never give up is the key of success. So it means kahit anumang pagsubok ang dumating sa buhay natin, ay patuloy tayong lalaban para sa ating kinabukasan. Number 2, trust is the basis of the relationship. Ibig sabihin, pinakamahalaga ay tiwala sa isa't isa para maging matagumpay ang isang grupo. That's all. Thank you.
Fables is a short story that illustrates a moral lesson. The plot of a fables includes a simple conflict and a resolutions. There are 4 central essential elements of a fable. First, symbolism. Characters in fables are stands in for human, and their misadventures are meant to symbolize human behavior. Second, the anthropomorphization. In fables, animals and even inanimated objects, like for example, the sun and the wind, are the main characters of the story. Third, lesson. Every fable has a moral lesson at the end that arises from the story. And the last is humor. Fables often have a humorous tone when showing the foolishness of human nature. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my topic is all about fairy tale. Fairy tale is a children's story about magical and imaginary beings and lands. It is idealized or extremely happy. So kapag sinabi po nating fairy tale, ito po yung laman ng imahinasyon natin or kagustuhan natin na kung saan may mga parte po na hindi po natin maaaring makamtan sa kadahilan ng ang fairy tale po na literature is fantasy. Some fairy tales are based on legends that incorporated a spiritual belief of the culture in which they originated and were meant to imitate. So, meron pong mga fairy tale stories na naglalaman ng mga paniniwalang spiritual ng mga kultura na pinanggalingan ng kwentong ito na ninanais na maisawalat ng author ng story. So, a story doesn't have to include any fairies at all to be considered a fairy tale. So, kapag sinabi po natin fairy tale, hindi naman po talaga nire-require na mag-include kayo ng fairy na character sa story. Pwede din naman po, pero just it's not all the time. Because there are a lot of other characters available na pwede po natin magamit para sa fairy tale stories. So, fairy tales are typically full of magic spells, princesses, talking animals, evil queens, witches, and goblins. So, What is the purpose of fairy tale? Like all stories, fairy tales are meant to entertain, but that's secondary. Unlike today's novels, their main purpose is to give a moral in a way the audience will remember. They exist to teach a lesson. So, ang fairy tale po is, ang purpose po nito is para makapagbigay po sa atin ng mga leksyon na maaari po nating magamit para sa ating pang-araw-araw na pamumuhay. So we have here examples ng mga fairy tales, Cinderella, Rapunzel, Sleeping Beauty, at saka yung ginawan po natin na story analysis, yung Jack and the Beanstalk is also a fairy tale story.
Royalty. Fairy tales usually feature royal settings or characters. There is a fairy castle, the queen and or king mentioned within the story. Sometimes the heroine is a missing princess, as is the case with Rapunzel and Sleeping Beauty. Many of the heroines in fairy tales end up living happily ever after, with a kind and handsome prince that rescues them. Fairy tales also have the problem and solution. The plot of a fairy tale focuses on a problem that must be solved. The whole story revolves around that problem, and the happily ever after is derived from finding a solution to the problem. Like Cinderella's problem was that she wanted to go to the ball. Her fairy godmother provided a solution to the problem, and thus Cinderella met the prince. The universal lesson: fairy tales provide lessons on some sort of universal truth. It's a world where goodness prevails. The story can be focused on coming of age, love, dreams, and hope. It shows that the kind hero or heroine can win in the face of adversity and an evil villain. The learning resources. Fairy tales are excellent resources for the classroom. Children are familiar with this type of genre. You could have students compare different versions of the story. Like the story of Cinderella. There are different tales from different regions. Since fairy tales have a common elements, they are useful in teaching students how to write. There is a format that they follow, and understanding it helps students to arrange their thoughts and map out their own stories.